Hi everyone. So I just wanted to put a little bit of an intro to the sourdough video. I made this video before I became a carnivore. It's not part of my carnivore journey. However, I do have people in my life who are still not carnivores or don't even really want to go on keto. So if they have to eat bread, I prefer them to eat my sourdough bread. I know that all that's in my sourdough bread is water and flour and salt and the starter, which I grew myself 5 years ago. So do not think that I am saying that this is part of a keto or carnivore diet. It is not. But I have two kids who are still not completely on board with the keto carnivore, and if they're going to eat bread, I prefer them to eat this bread. And it is absolutely amazing. So I wanted to share it. I made this video for two little girls to learn how to bake sourdough bread, so it was geared towards a younger audience. However, it is the same whether I make it for an adult or for a kid. So if you're here to learn how to make sourdough bread, I hope you enjoy. Cheers. Last night we took the starter out of the refrigerator and left it out all night long to eat. So this has warmed up and has eaten. So this is what it should look like. Maybe a little bit better than this one because I was out of town for a week and he didn't get fed. So the weight of this starter is your original 120 plus the 120 of water and the 120 of flour that you feed it every week when you're done. And in order to go ahead and feed it so I can make my dough, I have a bigger bowl because I'm going to have much bigger than this, so it needs to have room to expand because as it eats, it expands. For the feeding, you're always going to have all-purpose flour, and then a scale, my spoon, my measuring cup, and my filtered water. So the first thing that we do is put this bowl here, and we're going to tear it out to 0, and then we're going to take 220 grams of the starter and we're going to put it into here. This is a little more liquidy than it should be, but it's because I was out of town for a week. Doing this, it makes you think that you're going to have almost nothing left in here. I promise you will. You'll have 120 left. So that's 220. So then we're going to tear it out again. And I like to pour my water first. So you're going to do the same thing. Everything is always 1 to 1 to 1. So you're going to go 220 on this one. You want to go slow because it's hard to take out if you go too much. And it's not perfect. If you get a little bit over or a little bit under, you end up with 230. That's okay. We just make sure that we have to give it 230 of flour. It's not the same when you're actually baking the bread, but when you're feeding it, it's okay to be a little bit off. And then we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to go 200. A little closer to 230 since we ended up with extra. All right, I'm going to take this off, and while I have everything out, I go ahead and I want to take care of my original starter, right? You don't want to waste anything, so just make sure that you get as much as you can.
Lift it off and tear it.
Okay, so you're going to tear it. And then you're going to put, so this is 120 left. So we're going to put 120 of water. And we want to try to be as close as we can on this one because this is the one that's going to go back in the fridge. It's going to sit there for another week. So if you go too much on the flour, oh wait, I didn't tare it first.
You need 240.
Yeah. So if I forgot to tare it, so we already knew that we were at 120, so we're gonna go to 240. All right, so we take these and we're gonna stir them. Go ahead and pause it. So this is what it looks like after it's stirred. That's what they both look like. So the one that you're gonna make the dough out of later today in 5 hours, because it takes 5 hours for it to peak eat, you're just gonna barely put the lid, you're gonna want the lid on, but you don't want it to have a tight seal. So I like to make sure that this side and this side are not sealed because you want it to have air to breathe. And it makes less of a mess if you do that and when it overeats. So then this one is going to be original starter. This is my Bob. That's his name. You name yours what you want. It's going to go back in the fridge. And that's where he lives. And he's going to wait until next week, and then we'll take him back out to bake more bread, unless I bake more bread earlier in the week. So right now, what I do with this starter is I usually stick it in the microwave because it's got nice heat up there. The air conditioner won't get it, and he'll eat. So I will see you back here in about 5 hours. It is 12:03 now. Okay, so it has been a little over 5 hours, and this is what it should look like. It should be nice and bubbly, and when you do this, it should be full of like air pockets. So first thing I do is I take my KitchenAid or any kind of stand mixer, zero it out, and then per your recipe you're going to need 227 grams of starter. So I start putting it in there until I get 227. There's enough starter here that you make 2 loaves at a time. You don't have to, you can just waste it or save it for the tomorrow, but I do 2 loaves at once. If I'm going to go through doing it, might as well get it used. And I don't use I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to get a little bit out of there, so I have 227. Now this is where the science is. You don't want to go too much off. You can be just a little bit off, but not too much. So 228 is okay. So then next, we put in the flour, which is 602 grams. Now, this is bread flour, not all purpose. Okay, that never happens. So from 602 grams, we're gonna add 18 grams of salt. I just leave it on the 602 and I add 18 till I get to 620, but you can tare it and make it 18. Remember that scales sometimes take a little bit to catch up, so you don't want to overdo it. Okay. And then we're going to need 397 grams of water. Remember, you want to go slowly when you get closer to it, so you don't go over on the water. I'd rather not show you how fun it is to spoon out extra water. All right. Then you take you want your paddle attachment. You don't want you're not going to need this. We're going to do that by hand over the next 3 hours. So I take and lock it in place and just go really slowly. I just kind of do a few times like that so I don't get flour and water flying everywhere. And then you're going to do this. Your goal is not to make it mix like crazy. Your goal is just to get a wet mixture, and when it starts kind of forming all together where you don't have a whole lot to scrape off, that's when you stop. So So 30 to 60 seconds. I usually go about to there. And then I take another spoon, not the spoon I put in the starter. I just scrape it off the paddle. And then I take and put it in one of my big bowls. Scrape as much out as you can. Okay. Now I'm gonna make my other one. After I have the other one done, both of my bowls are gonna have lids on them. And I'm gonna set a timer for 1 hour. So I'm gonna make my other loaf, my other one, and then I will see you back here in 1 hour. Okay, I lied. I'm back before the hour is up. I forgot to tell you that what's left in here after you make both of your things is enough that if you save it for tomorrow, you're gonna have enough to make 2 more loaves of bread the next day. So I'm going to actually take and put this in the microwave for the night and just leave it there. And I'm going to make more bread with it tomorrow. If you add tomorrow morning to feed it, if you add 165 grams of water and 165 grams of flour, it will give you exactly enough to make 2 more loaves the next day. Okay, now I'll see you in an hour. Okay, the 1 hour timer is going off, so we're gonna do our first stretch. Your bread's gonna look like this, kind of gooey and yuck. So you're gonna take and put your fingers under there, pull it up and bring it in, and pull it up and bring it in. And you're gonna keep doing that. And you'll start to see that it changes. You'll start to feel it too. It should be kind of sticky. And I just keep doing, you want to keep doing this. This is going to build up your gluten and it's going to make it where it wants to stay together when you bake it. So you just keep pulling and eventually you're going to feel that it takes a lot more to be able to pull it. And as soon as you feel like it's not going to pull anymore, you leave it. Put the lid on. I just make sure there's no, pull the air out. All right, let's do the same thing with the next one. When you've been doing it for a long time, you get fast at it. And I always turn it clockwise because they say that's good luck. And we're gonna do this 2 more times. So we're gonna set a timer for 1 more hour. And then we're gonna do it 1 more time and another hour after that. So I'll see you in an hour. Okay. So now you'll see that it's starting to get a little bit of a rise and we're just gonna do the same thing, but this time it's gonna stick to the walls a little bit. So you just run your fingers under there and pull it. And you're gonna keep doing the same thing as you did last time. You won't get as many stretches in now because the gluten's starting to bind. Just want to go until you can't stretch anymore, which is about there. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And sometimes one of mine will be stickier. This one's stickier than the other. And it just happens. So don't worry if they don't feel exactly the same. They will both still turn out well. One is just a little bit wetter than the other, and I can't explain why, it just happens. And this one wants to stretch more than the other one did too. All right, see you in an hour. Okay, last stretch. You see that it's gotten a little bit more rise. The one thing that I forgot to say is make sure you wash your hands before you do each of these steps. So this one's going to take even less because it's gotten a lot more firm. So at this point, as soon as we're done with this, they're going to go in the fridge, and they can stay in the fridge for 12 hours up to 48 hours. Typically, my first 2 loaves out of a batch that I'm doing will go about 16 hours before I bake them. My second two loaves usually go 48 hours before I bake them. So you'll see that it's getting a lot more spongy, and that's what you want. So now we're going to put these in the fridge, and I will be back again tomorrow. Okay, so the dough has been in the refrigerator for at least 18 hours. This is what it's going to look like. So the first step, go around the bowl and pull it up, and then you're going to take it, and I always just use my lids to do this first rising stage, and just put it into a rough ball. You're pushing out the air. You see the air bubbles. That's a good thing. Air bubbles are good. So just kind of a rough ball. We'll do the same with this one. We're going to rough ball that. I take a kitchen towel and I just lay it over the top of them. Set a timer for 15 minutes, and I'll see you back in 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to show you both ways, with parchment paper and without parchment paper for my Dutch ovens. I have two, so I almost never use parchment paper. But because you may only have one Dutch oven, you want to use parchment paper because then you can recycle your pan a lot faster. So I'm going to do one with parchment and one without. So to get my Dutch oven ready, I just put a little bit of olive oil in there. Okay, take a paper towel and just rub it around. And you don't need a whole lot. So that's going to be the Dutch oven that I'm not going to use parchment paper for. The one that I am going to use parchment paper, I'm going to tear off a piece, and what I like to do, try to fold it under a little bit, just so it'll start to make the shape of this, because if it doesn't, then your bread will not turn out circular, which is okay. So now that those are ready, we're going to wait another 7 minutes for the dough to be ready to do the next step, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so 15 minutes is up. Now we're going to form our dough balls. The one thing about this is it takes practice. So don't worry if it takes a little bit of extra time. Pick up and then kind of, I don't really want to get it in that flour. Flour your hands completely. And then I take it and I just kind of push it together until my seam is all in the bottom. And then once it is, you turn it over, put it in the flour, and this is where you're going to do your forming. So this hand is going to not do a whole lot, but just hold it. This hand's going to go under and push in, under and push in, under and push in, under and push in. And you're going to do that until you have a nice ball, and you may have to reflour. And then I just set it in the Dutch oven. I already have this lid already floured, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one up. Get as much as my seam as I can. Reflour my hands. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Sometimes they form your dough ball a lot faster. This one is working a lot easier, so you may not need to spend as much time on it. And then you're gonna pick it up, put it in your Dutch oven. So now we're going to cover these Dutch ovens. And see how that one's not perfectly circular? That's okay, it's already started to spread. In the next 2.5 hours while these are rising, they're technically not going to rise. They're just going to spread out. So the first step is I'm going to set a timer for 1.5 hours. And then at the end of the 1.5 hours, we'll do the next steps. So we're just going to let these sit for 90 minutes. See you in a little while. Okay, timer just went off for the 90 minutes. All we're going to do is reset the timer for 1 hour. And turn the oven on to 500. Now I always make sure I've melted things, that my oven is empty. All right, see you back here in 1 hour. Okay, we are going to get these ready to go in the oven. You will see that they didn't rise very much, but they expanded the whole outline. So you have two things that you need to do here. The first is that you need to cut them so when they bake they don't explode, and you need to put some flour on them. So I will show you two different cuts that I do, and you can either use a razor that's made for this or scissors. I just use scissors. So I do a 3 cut, and you want it to get like 1/2 inch deep, and also I do a cross cut. Both of them will give you a nice bread. So you take a little bit of flour, and you just want to do a light dusting of your bread. Now, I can't honestly tell you why you do this, other than that's the way sourdough bread is made. So just put light dusting on there. Then you're going to put them in the oven. When you put them in the oven, I bake both loaves together, but if you only have one, do your one, take it out, and then do the other. So very carefully, both of them in the oven. Oh, oops, hold on. Tear the extra parchment paper off. If not, it will burn in the oven. All right, now, once they go in the oven, and you want to try not to keep the oven open for very long like I just did, you are going to set a timer for 45 minutes, and you are going to drop your temperature down to 450. And I will see you back here in 45 minutes. Okay, so 45 minutes is up. All we're gonna do is take the tops off. So be very careful because there's a lot of steam underneath there because you've been steaming the bread. And then if you look at the bread, it's definitely not done. It's not got a brown yet. And it's never gonna be the same time. So we're gonna put them in for 10 minutes. But know that it may change from loaf to loaf.
And in this 10 minutes.
So in this 10 minutes, you're gonna get your area set up so you have some place to cool. Okay, time to pull the bread. So for the one with this, just be careful you don't touch your Dutch oven because it's going to be hot. Remember, I've done this a million times, so just be careful. For the one that you don't use the parchment, I found the easiest thing to do is take the towel you started with and a butter knife. Put the butter knife off the bread and just pull it over like that. And there you go. You can see that my favorite is doing the 3 lines. It looks a little bit better than the cuts, but that's it. Your bread's done. Now, remember, you cannot cut into it until it is completely cooled, so at least 2 hours. No, stop. And that's it. So, show me some amazing bread. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below and I will answer them. And before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and to the video. I appreciate all of you, and cheers.